should you get and build bobbing? Short answer, probably. Long answer, this entire video.
Hello. I'm here at Rhodes Island for an exchange study representing the Maylander Foundation's Pure Heart Medical. Your operator saw me before in Victoria. I'd like to avoid discussing my experiences there for the time being, if I could.
私とおしゃべりがしたい？では、ビーズクッションを持ってきますね。かしこまらなくていいので、話したいことを何でもおっしゃってください。喜んで聞きますから。
Eliseo, codename Bobbing. A Payro who is an employee of Pure Heart Medical from Colombia. That is also part of Maylander Foundation. He was sent to Rhodes Island in an exchange program, helping us with various tasks such as search and rescue, negotiation, and also giving emotional support apparently. Some time ago, he was also sent to Londinium, met with some of our operators, and it seems to have been involved in an event there. Alright, Bobbing is our newest ritualist supporter, and the first one that inflicts burn elemental damage. As most already know, Ritualist is one of the best units if you want to inflict elemental injury. Yes, they changed the mechanic name to elemental injury, to avoid confusion with the damage type. In any case, Bobbing inflicts burn. This type of element injury will instantly deal some element damage to the enemy, and also reduce their art's resistance. And as you know, elemental damage is a very strong damage type. Because so far there's no enemy with a defense against it. So element damage is pretty much true damage with a different name. Okay, scrap that. Episode 15 and Arknights CN just brought enemies with effect resistance. So it means it will take longer to deplete the elemental circle of these enemies. God knows what the game will bring next. Anyway, back to Bobbing. Compared to Necrosis, burn total damage is lower, though the enemies do get their resistance lowered by 20, making them more vulnerable to Art's attack. So with that said, Bobbing synergies well with Art Stealer, typically Caster, and also with those who can inflict element damage, if the enemy is under burn burst effect, like Warmy and Ifrit. And later on, we will have Viviana with her new module, and also Blaze Altar. Now let's see Bobbing's general stats. Much like your typical ranged units, Bobbing has a low defensive stats. His attack stat is also low, making the damage he dealt unremarkable. At least that is without skill, and without considering his element damage. Other than that, he has a cheap cost like other Ritualist. For his talent, his first attack against an enemy will always deal burn damage to them. With his normal attack alone, this is not enough to deplete the enemy element circle, and make them enter burn burst effect. But it's still helpful to deplete the element circle faster, especially with his skills. Well, at least for the first time he attack the enemy. Then this is his potential upgrade. It will do things like reducing his cost, increasing attack, and improving his talent. Next, this is his module. If you watching this around the time of his debut, it is not available yet, and will only be available right at the next event featuring Lappy Altar. Currently all Ritualist only got X module, which will increase the elemental injury taken by elites and bosses. And for Bobbing, he also got attack and defense bonus. As for the upgrade, it will increase the burn damage from his talent, but only by 1% on each level. From my experience, this module helps him a lot. When using his best skill, spoiler, it's his skill 2, he is unable to deplete boss's element circle in one skill activation. And that is him at max level and skill 2 at M3. But thanks to this module and its upgrade, he can now make bosses enter burn burst effect in one go. Needless to say, it's a recommended module to get if you decided to build him. But as you might have guessed, he is a rather expensive unit to upgrade before he gets good. At least if you want him to inflict burn burst to bosses in one skill activation. Moving on, let's see his skills. Personally, not much I can say of his skill 1. It's pretty much Virtuosa skill 1 but way worse. He has the potential to make normal or elite enemies to enter burn burst effect in one skill activation thanks to his talent. But I think overall his skill 2 is better, to inflict burn damage, and also handle waves. Of course, unless you want him to deal element damage to aerial enemies. But at that point I feel like you better use someone else. And for his skill 2, bobbing will manifest the horror that is the American healthcare system, and light 3 tiles on fire. All ground enemies inside will take arts and burn damage every second. What he can't kill with arts, he should be with the element damage, making it a reliable crowd control skill. That can even inflict a burn burst effect to bosses in one go, if you upgrade him enough. And thanks to the SP cost, you can use this pretty often. Overall it's a pretty great skill, with a great reference. And watching enemies spontaneously combust is always a fun thing to watch. But this skill also has its own problems. Unable to hit flying enemies is one thing. But I find that the biggest downside here is how small and restrictive his skill range is. Without blocker, enemies can easily run past through that fire. Enemy awkward position can also result in him burning some undesirable tiles. I also mentioned that this skill is able to make bosses enter burn burst effect in one skill activation. But that's only after you spend a lot of resources to upgrade him. We're talking max level, max module, and skill at full mastery. And if the boss has multiple phases, in the next phase he's no longer able to burn them in one go. But mostly, it's only a problem when you want to speedrun a boss. It's not that long to wait for his skill to active again. For skills that I recommend to master, it's pretty much just his skill 2. To increase the arts and the burn damage. And then his base skill. Just a dorm skill that will increase the moral recovery of everyone in the dorm. And increase for every operator whose moral is not full. So ladies and gentlemen, should you get and build bobbing? Overall for a 5-star I think he's good, and worth considering to build. Elemental damage is always useful, and he's one of the operators who can easily inflict it with his skill 2. And that skill is also a pretty great crowd control if you ever need another one. One of the biggest downsides of him right now is that there's not many operators that can work with his burn damage. Well, it's not that long until we get Viviana Delta module, and ultimately Blaze Altar. But if you have the options, you might want to build those operators who specialize in necrosis for the time being. And talking about Blaze Altar, the other 6-star beside her is you. The best burn damage dealer in the game so far. I'm sure some if not most of you are planning to get him. If that's the case, I suppose you can skip getting or build bobbing for now. That should be all. Adios.